So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tenant Tuesdays at 2. My name is Kadeem Morris. I'm an attorney in the housing unit here at Community Legal Services. And this is our weekly conversation on topics related to tenants living throughout Philadelphia. Tenant Tuesdays at 2 is made possible by the support of the Philadelphia Eviction Prevention Project. Each week we cover different topics, so we encourage you to come back weekly and listen and join us either through Zoom or via Facebook Live to get more information on how things are changing in the city in response to the pandemic and other issues that may be affecting tenants throughout the city of Philadelphia. Spanish interpretation services are available by clicking the interpretation link at the bottom of the Zoom broadcast. So if you would like to listen in Spanish, that is available to you. We will also be posting after this presentation is finished. We'll post the recordings both in Spanish and English. The English version will be found on our Facebook page, and I believe the Spanish version should be uploaded to our YouTube page at some point. You can reach us for information about issues related to your housing or just general guidance during the pandemic by visiting www.phillytenants.org or contacting our hotline at 267-443-2500. Again, 267-443-2500. Today I'm joined by Jason Sanchez. He is a paralegal within the housing unit here at CLS, and today we are going to have a conversation that focuses mainly on intake here at CLS. As most of you are aware, the pandemic has kind of shifted the way service providers are providing services, so we kind of wanted to take a few minutes and talk about what that looks like here at Community Legal Services during this pandemic, particularly in the housing unit and as it applies to the broader conversation. So if you have questions about intake, feel free to put them in the Facebook chat. If you have questions about getting services through us, you can also place those there and we will get to them as soon as possible. Right now, I want to briefly provide some updates on the courts. As most of you would be aware, the governor did issue an executive order limiting new filings of evictions based on non-payment of rent and termination of term to July 10th. That'll be the first date those cases can be filed. Also, municipal court and common pleas courts have also been closed by judicial orders until July, so they will begin hearing new cases at about the same time. So for those in Philadelphia who are wondering what the actual timeline is for a new eviction case to be heard or come into court post-COVID-19, hopefully will be post-COVID-19 by July. But July is when the courts will once again reopen and start processing new cases. The Fair Housing Commission is currently working remotely, and they're now accepting filings from clients for issues related to L&I and other issues that may present themselves in terms of asserting your rights as a tenant in Philadelphia. As I mentioned before, CLS is working remotely, so today we're actually going to talk about what does remote work look like for our tenants and clients in the context of intake. So I will invite Jason to kind of get us started on the conversation with how has intake changed at CLS and in the housing unit since COVID-19?
Of course. Hi there, Kadeem. Thank you. And hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. Yes, my name is Jason Sanchez. I'm a paralegal at Community Legal Services. I normally do intake and tend to many clients. And yeah, given the COVID-19 situation, for many reasons, it was decided that we can't have our normal walk-in intakes at our main office at 1424 or at the Help Center in Municipal Court. So now we're currently doing all remote work. There is the Landlord tenant hotline. So folks are free to just call the hotline, leave a message, and then someone from our office will contact you within 1 to 2 business days and return your call and kind of handle it, the situation remotely.
So CLS is open and working remotely. We're not just showing up virtually on Tenant Tuesdays at 2. We're actually open and providing services. And clients or people who are having difficulties can generally contact us through our hotline. And I know you kind of mentioned 1 to 2 days in terms of a typical callback. What does it look like when someone calls the hotline, and what should they expect from a callback?
So the hotline offers a number of different options. There's a whole pre-recorded message that kind of routes you to the appropriate kind of location where you would need to get the particular services that you're looking for. After you kind of select all the options that you're looking for, you would leave a detailed voice message with your name, your contact information, and preferably your address and other ways that we can get in contact with you. And then someone will kind of compile all that information, filter it down to each individual paralegal or case manager, and we will then reach out directly to you to kind of assess the situation and see if there's anything that we can do to potentially help you with your housing situation.
Okay, so the phones aren't being answered live. Someone's calling in, being routed either to, let's say, the housing unit or employment unit, because those are two things that are like in the forefront of my mind right now with COVID-19. And then they can expect a call back, hopefully within a day or two, depending on volume. Someone will call them back and basically try to walk them through the intake process. Now, I know that when most people are doing intakes, it shows up as a CLS number calling. So we're not just calling you from a random number, we're kind of calling you from CLS. So you can take some comfort in answering the phone. We're not a telemarketer, we're just trying to provide services. So what does a typical intake look like from, I guess, the remote end? What should clients know before calling us for an intake?
Well, so I think the main thing is that before we kind of can give any sort of legal advice or kind of any pointers, we do need to gather some basic information. So that would be your name, your numbers, income, determine your eligibility, right? And so if we find that you're eligible for our services, we then kind of move from that information gathering section to a more, okay, let's have a conversation. What is your housing situation? What is going on? Is this an issue that we can potentially help you with? And kind of in that, each paralegal or case manager kind of gets notes down and enters that into kind of a centralized system that a number of different of our employees can kind of access to help you, through your, case or legal issue. So I think I would just expect that it is going to take some time to open an initial file. It may take 30, to 40 minutes to kind of gather the basics and get through kind of the substantive part of what your legal issue is.
So I just want to kind of repeat some of that because we were having a little internet issue intermittently. So the important starting point is that we're going to need your name, address, basic information about your household member, household compositions, any income that is in your household at this point in time. That's information that we'll need to know. And then that is put into a centralized system that all of the case managers here at CLS have access to. So in the event that you called us on Monday, got a call back on Tuesday, you don't need to call us back on Wednesday, or if you do call us back on Wednesday, we'll be able to pull your file of information that's already stored and kind of see where you are in the assistance process, if it has been assigned to someone, if someone may have left you a voicemail message and now you're returning the call so we can do the follow-up at that point. We'll just kind of walk through that system with you. So we kind of capture everything at the beginning to make it as seamless as possible on the tenant side. So I guess the question as we look at this from the remote work and modern age is there an online intake system that's available for our clients right now?
So we do have phillytenant.org, where there is a number of kind of basic information that tenants can access. There's a number of our flyers and kind of a compilation of a number of different resources that tenants are free to look at, and kind of would be some of the basic advice we would give on the hotline. Of course, every situation is very kind of individualized and may require more specific advice to be given. So we would still encourage folks to call if they have any pending questions or concerns. At this point, we don't have like a centralized online forum, right, for like a submission of a question or something like that. Kind of all of your general inquiries should be focused to the hotline, and someone will be able to get back to you as quickly as possible.
So I note that it's not up yet, but it is coming in some shape or form very soon. The powers that be are working on getting an online system to kind of boost our ability to serve you. But in the interim, as Jason mentioned, phillytenant.org is available, and our hotline 267-443-2500 is also available to you. So this is a question, and I think it's an important issue to discuss. How are we dealing with clients who might have limited English proficiency, who might be used to coming into our office and like receiving services that are catered to them? Should they expect additional delays? What does that look like?
So we all have access to what's called language line services. So we do have an ability to be able to dial a translator over the phone who will be able to help us communicate, with whatever language it is that the client speaks. And that's a fairly seamless process. It may take a little bit more time than usual to be able to get it set up, but it's still a service that's available. So if folks, if English is not your first language and you do need support, we do have the resources to be able to help provide that.
So I think an important takeaway there is call us, let us know if English is not your first language and you'd prefer to communicate in a different language so that we can set up a call with an interpreter to call you back and try to provide you with all of the services that are possible at this time. So are there any services that aren't being provided to clients or tenants during this pandemic time?
Mm-hmm. So not necessarily. Kind of, we're still up and running and doing all the things that we need to do. Obviously, with the court closures and PHA is currently kind of closed or working at a very limited capacity, our ability to do certain things is, the timelines are a bit slower at the moment, but that doesn't mean that we still can't help intervene with a lot of the legal issues going on with your landlord. And, I think it's important to at least, once you've passed that threshold, you've gotten into our office, right? We've now created a file and we're able to monitor that situation. And so the moment that things do start to open up again, or there is a, opening again of certain services, we can kind of immediately get onto it and start getting that ball rolling.
So I think that's good.
If you were
good to know that
later.
Although the courts are closed and PHA is operated in a limited capacity, we can still provide you with assistance. Like if you are facing the threat of an eviction right now, maybe you received a notice, you can still call us and ask if legal representation may be available to you. We might be able to resolve your case before the courts reopen. Of course, that's always our hope now that there's this additional window of protection to get you the most out of this time frame. But if it's not resolved and we still do need to take the case to court, we still have the ability to evaluate that case on a forward-going basis and see what services we can provide to you during this time. And you mentioned the Fair Housing Commission. What types of cases are typically brought before the Fair Housing Commission?
So Fair Housing Commission cases generally deal with certain repair issues or violations. So generally the city would have to come out and find certain violations that have been filed against the property. So it's a lot of kind of repair issue situations where folks are living in substandard quality of housing that want these repairs to be made or these situations to be ironed out. I guess an important point of that is that this would have to happen before the landlord files a municipal court, right? So it's kind of intended as this like a way of being able to handle kind of as a tenant to be able to put forward a complaint against your landlord before a municipal court eviction case would be filed against them. But the commission also listens to certain types of cases related to potential like housing discrimination stuff and other like potential rent increase and decrease type of situations. But the primary focus is really on, kind of repair issues and sub-quality standards of housing.
So just to kind of reinforce that, if you are at the stage in the game where you're probably dealing with COVID-19 as we all are, your relationship with your landlord is becoming more difficult or tenuous, and you've got a repair issue that may have been pre-existing and you're trying to get that resolved, your landlord hasn't filed against you, this is the time when you should reach out to the Fair Housing Commission, because once your case goes into municipal court, the Fair Housing Commission loses jurisdiction or the ability to hear a complaint from you on an ongoing municipal court case. So if you are at the stage where things are probably beginning to meet a point where you can't negotiate and you'd like either information or advocacy around these issues that may have pre-existed, you can feel free to call us. We'll be happy to help you. Or you can reach out to the Fair Housing Commission themselves directly through their online portal. If you look up Philadelphia Fair Housing Commission, you'll get routed to their website. They also have an online system that allows you to submit paperwork and information to them, which should be pretty seamless. And they also do hear cases about housing discrimination. I know we spoke previously on one of our episodes about the Fair Housing Rights Act. We had Sterling Johnson on, and he was talking about discrimination due to COVID and people being forced from their homes due to COVID-19. So if you think that you're experiencing any COVID-19 related issues and you don't have a court case yet, now might be a time for you to reach out to the Fair Housing Commission and see if they can help you, because once there's a municipal court case filed against you, there is not the ability to then go to the Fair Housing Commission and have them hear a case for you. So that, I think, is a lot of useful information. So I think as we shift the conversation a little bit, I kind of want to take the opportunity to go back and talk a little more about what's happening at CLS in terms of, so we've talked about what to expect with a typical intake when you come through our doors, our digital doors, that is, where you come in, you but you come in, give us your basic information on the intake form digitally, albeit, and then we can process you back and create a file for you. What does document submission look like right now in COVID-19? Because I know, like, sometimes clients come in our doors and they bring a box. The box is their entire life as a tenant, or every piece of documentation they might have received from the housing authority. How are we going about processing that information and receiving that information?
I mean, we still have access to our email addresses. So I would say if a client, best case scenario, if they have a digital like smartphone, they can just take a picture of the documents that they want us to see, email it to us, and that way we can kind of check it out and see what's going on that way. I would also say that for certain documents that we need to sign, there is a way for us to be able to send messaged links where they can it's kind of what we're trying to look at, kind of submitting those documentations that are necessary in a digital format. But I think—
Sorry, would you mind repeating that?
Needs us to see.
I just want you to repeat what you just said in terms of document submission, because you kind of broke up a little. We were talking about documents that I believe you might have been talking about pre-mailed envelopes or DocuSign. So if you could just repeat that so people can generally be aware of what that looks like.
Of course. Yes. So in order for us to be able to open a file and kind of actively start working on your case, we do need certain documents to be signed. One way that we can get those documents out to you is just by sending it via mail. Inside would be included a pre-stamped envelope. So you would just sign the documents and then kind of return it in that pre-stamped envelope. But we're also experimenting with this new system where we are texting people links directly to their smartphones, and they just have to open up that link and sign the document digitally, and then we automatically would receive the signed document. So it makes it much more seamless on our end.
So I think that's great to note for people who might have interacted with us previously, maybe in the last 2 weeks or so, and you might have received the link through DocuSign. telling you to sign a retainer agreement or sign an intake form. Those are actually coming from us. So don't fear. That's us trying to reach you and complete the intake process in the most meaningful way. And of course, if you were sent a link and you are not tech savvy or you prefer to receive something in hard copy so that you can read and sign, give us a call, let us know. We can put that in the mail to you and send a pre-stamped envelope that you can return the documents with. So that's great that we are experimenting with these different models in response to the pandemic to be as helpful as possible. So I kind of want to talk about capacity issues. Are there any limits to the number of people being served through intake? I know previously when we were open, there was more people to be served on a daily basis than we can possibly serve. How has that changed in the digital intake era?
I mean, as of right now, we don't kind of have any intake limitations as we did back in the office. Client simply just has to leave a message, and then we're going to do our best to get back to you. Of course, moving to a digital platform always involves kind of jumping through some tech hurdles, but overall we're still able to kind of provide the same quality services as we did in office. So to answer the question, no, there really isn't any limitations right now on capacity. We're fully able to kind of meet the needs of the people that we have at the moment. So we definitely encourage folks to call if they have an issue.
So you heard it here first. Here first, folks. If you are in need of legal assistance or legal services, we encourage you to give us a call. We are standing by to help everyone who calls us in some way, shape, or form. It might take a day or two for us to turn around and get to you because of volume, but just give us an opportunity to call you back. And also, just an important note for myself from working on intakes, if you have the capacity to, it'd be great to set up a voicemail on your phone, because sometimes when we do call people back, we don't have the ability to leave a voice message, or if you have a voice message box set up, check it regularly, because you may have reached out to us and we might have tried to reach back out to you, but don't actually have the capacity to do that if we can't leave you a message on your voicemail. So, and we don't text people before we get their permission to correspond with them in that manner. So it'd be great if people can just be on the lookout for text messages, well, not text messages, for voice messages as we try to leave them and they come in. So I kind of just want to reinforce, what types of cases should people be calling in about? I know like the court's kind of closed, landlords are hopefully being flexible with their clients at this time, but what should people prioritize? I always in my mind say, if you can't pay your rent and you feel like you're going to have to go to court about it, give us a call. We might be able to connect you with rental assistance and other resources. But what typically, or what are we seeing the most of right now on intake?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most crucial one right now is illegal lockouts, right? So if your landlord has taken any steps to make your unit uninhabitable, right? Shutting off electric service, water service, gas service, if they've taken off your front door or changed the locks or in any way have made the property uninhabitable to you, that is definitely a serious issue that we could potentially help you with by potentially communicating with the landlord, helping facilitate any situations with the police. I think that is by far one of the most crucial issues, that you should feel inclined to call us to see if you can get our services for. Beyond that, I would say if you have, repair issues, if you are thinking of, you're not able to make your rent payment, there are all these different services and kind of bits of advice that we can give you to kind of troubleshoot those situations, particularly if it hasn't gotten to the court stage yet, right? Because we do want to make sure that we can prevent as many people from going to court as possible, right? In order to be able to kind of figure things out before it gets to that stage. So I would say, those types of issues, repair issues, the need for potential applications for rental assistance are the ones we definitely want to kind of help out with. Also PHA cases, right? Even though right now we may not be able to, kind of completely change the situation with PHA, right? We still want to be hearing what your concerns are, hearing what your issues are with regards to those types of things. And when PHA does kind of open up completely or there is full capacity, we already have you in our system and we can kind of take it from there.
So I think that's really some useful information. I want to just kind of reinforce that the city is open in some remote way and OHS is accepting applications for rental assistance. So if you might have tried before or you are now in a position where you need rental assistance, be it through COVID-19 or just life, because life does throw us curveballs from time to time, we encourage you to either call us and we can help you with that process or call the Office of Homeless Services directly and they will be able to walk you through their process and tell you what support and documentation is needed. I would say the important thing right now, both in the context of intake and in the context of applying for services, is to know what documentation you need to provide to both CLS and let's say a third-party agency who's offering you rental assistance and try to get those documentations proactively. A lot of that information is available, as we've been saying, on phillytenant.org. There's a lot of self-help information kind of stored on that web page that also can give you information about utility services and other issues as they present themselves. And just so people are aware, because I know this conversation is generally framed in the context of housing issues, all of CLS is doing remote work and intake from their homes, calling you back and being responsive to your needs. So if you have an issue that's not housing, if you're worried about your public benefits or SNAP, if you've got a disability claim that's pending, feel free to reach out to us. Call our direct line. I think it's 267-981-3700 is the, I'll say that slower, 267-981-3700. Call our direct office number and you'll be routed to the department or unit that can help you, and they are happy and more than able to provide you with services at this point in time. In the time that we have left, I kind of want to have a conversation or just refresh people's memory, because we haven't really talked about, at least in a while, what an eviction actually looks like and what that stage is. So Jason, if you could tell us the parts of kind of the eviction process and what people should be, or what does it start with? How does a landlord initiate an eviction against the tenant?
Right. So I think the very first step would be notice, right? The tenant would receive a piece of paper in the mail, either directly from the landlord or their attorney, kind of letting them know that they're intending to evict that person. Unfortunately, these notices are kind of used as scare tactics, right? They're scary letters that'll say you have 5 days, 10 days, 15 days to vacate a property. In actuality, you do not have to leave that property by whatever date it says, right? You don't have to leave in 5 days or 10 days. That's just simply kind of step one, the landlord letting you know that they want you out of the property. Then after that, the landlord would go ahead and file a complaint against the tenant in municipal court. That would then entail them giving service to the tenant, right? The court, they would receive the kind of official court documents that would have a date and time for them to present themselves in municipal court and kind of figure out the case at that point. We obviously tell folks.
So I think this is kind of the point to kind of stress where we're at the stage where your landlord theoretically would bring you to court, but the courts right now are not operational. So if you do receive a notice and a filing against you, just be aware that the courts aren't open right now, but that case could potentially be scheduled in the future. The goal is, or the hope is, that you'll receive an additional notice that tells you of your court date. But if you are kind of stressing about a notice that's come in the mail because you are behind on your rent, you can give us a call, or you can call the court's offices and ask, when is your case scheduled for or going to be scheduled for? Of course, with most people, not only our offices operating remotely, you have to give an additional, maybe you have to call multiple times to the court to get through to someone who can answer your question, but they are there and able to provide that service. So who can be evicted?
People that are living in properties where landlords have the rentals license, right? So if a landlord has an active rentals license, they can then go ahead and file that case in municipal court, but unless they do not have that license, they cannot file a case against you to properly evict you.
So I think at least when I moved in, I received, and when everyone moves into a unit in Philadelphia, they should receive a copy of your landlord's renter's license, a certificate of rental suitability, which is a certificate that says your home is habitable and up to code, and also a Partners for Good Housing handbook. Those licenses are renewed, I believe, on a yearly basis by your landlord. So the first hurdle that your landlord would have to cross when trying to get into court is to make sure that they're in compliance with the court requirements, i.e. having a renter's license or having a certificate of rental suitability. Now, if you've never received those and your landlord is trying to file against you, this would be a great case that you can reach out to the Fair Housing Commission about, because your landlord can't file in municipal court, and they will have an opportunity to hear and enforce the ordinances before you get to municipal court, and that might be able to bring you some additional relief at this point in time. And of course, if your landlord has all the paperwork necessary and you are a household member living in an apartment that is leased or a home that is rented in any way, shape, or form, you're encouraged to kind of be aware that you can be evicted as soon as the court's open. Of course, it won't be as soon as. There's the entire scheduling process that has to happen. And just so you're aware, the courts are closed right now, but when the courts reopen, your case may be scheduled. So be on the lookout, hopefully, for a notice that will come to you in the mail. So in the last 5 minutes, as we wrap up, I kind of want you, Jason, emphasize anything that's super important about intake or service delivery at this point in time in this kind of pandemic-esque environment that we are working in?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to emphasize the fact that we are here, right? Like, even though our physical office is not open, all of us paralegals, all of us our attorneys are working from home, and we are actively calling folks back. So we realize that folks call our hotline number if they're just even looking for some basic advice, some basic information, even if they, have a feeling that it might escalate and just want, to be educated on what their rights are and kind of know what their, next steps are, to really, really call our number or check our website, phillytenant.org, because there's so many good resources available to everyone there. So really, really want to emphasize that for sure.
I can't stress it enough. We're open, we're available, and we're happy to help you. So if you just have a question, no question is too simple. We're here to answer your questions and provide you with any services that you might need. Just as a reminder, firstly, thank you, Jason, for joining us for this conversation about intake at CLS and kind of giving individuals on the receiving end an idea of what to expect when they call us and we call them back, because I know things change in the pandemic world and not everyone's aware of the type of assistance that they might receive. So to kind of give the comfort to people of knowing that it should be as seamless as possible, or that's our goal on our end. And if you need an accommodation or if you need something to be done differently, reach out to us and we will try our best to accommodate you. As always, Tenant Tuesdays at 2 is brought to you by the Philadelphia Eviction Prevention Project. That is a collaborative effort between the Mayor's Office, City Council, and a group of legal aid agencies throughout the city of Philadelphia: Senior Law, Legal Clinic for the Disabled, Clarify, Philadelphia VIP, and CLS Community Legal Services. We encourage you, if you're a tenant who has been helped or who is seeking help and understands the importance of having an attorney, to reach out to your city council members and encourage them to keep the Philadelphia Eviction Prevention Project funded, because that has allowed us to come into your homes today in this digital format and provide you with service. And it also channels individuals to our Lawyer for the Day program. There are tenants classes that are being provided online in a digital kind of Zoom interactive format by Turn, which is the Tenants Union Rights Network. So a lot of what we do right now is because of the generous support of City Council and the Mayor's Office to the Philadelphia Eviction Project. And we want that to continue so that when the floodgates of the courts do open, we can still be there and still support you to the greatest of our ability. So thank you for joining us. We encourage you to join us next week for a different conversation. We might have one of our pet partners on to talk about the services that they are providing currently at this point in time. But thank you for being here, and we hope this was an informative edition of Tenant Tuesdays at 2, and see you next week. Thank you.